Okay, so everything just got a little weirder. Filed today in the South Carolina Supreme Court is a motion to disqualify Justice Toal from the Alex Murdaugh case. The bizarre twist is that it wasn't filed by any of the attorneys that have anything to do with this case. The reason put is participation in conspiracy against civil rights of citizens, and it's addressed to all 23 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. It was filed by a man by the name of Patrick Lee Booker, who calls himself a U.S. Justice Advocate. He asks for her to be disqualified and claims that this order appointing her provides him with this opportunity to motion the Senate Judiciary Committee disqualify Judge Toal in the interest of public justice, hereby notifying those in the world of the widespread judicial corruption and misconduct inured here in the state of South Carolina because of public misconduct and criminal acts are being committed by certain public officials, including judges and so-called justice members in South Carolina. He cites a case, Pearson v. Ray, from 1967, with an excerpt of Justice Douglas dissenting, saying that it was recognized that certain members of the judiciary were instruments of oppression and were partially responsible for the wrongs to be remedied. The parade of cases coming to this court shows that a similar condition now obtains in some of the states. Some state courts have been instruments of suppression of civil rights. The methods may have changed, the means may have become more subtle, but the wrong to be remedied still exists. It goes on, the above captioned parties are entitled to have the pending motion for a new trial be decided by a qualified judicial member who have never banded with or conspired with another person to prevent, hinder, or obstruct a U.S. citizen in the free exercise and enjoyment of his or her rights secured to him or her by the Constitution and laws of the United States. Then under the caption, Conspiracy Against Civil Rights of Citizens, Disability to Hold Public Office, it goes on April 7, 2010, while at the South Carolina Supreme Court building, Jean H. Toal, Chief Justice, South Carolina Supreme Court, in her official capacity, did conspire by and between Costa Plecones, Associate Justice, South Carolina Supreme Court, in his official capacity, Donald Beatty, Associate Justice, South Carolina Supreme Court, in his official capacity, John Kittredge, Associate Justice, South Carolina Supreme Court, in his official capacity, and Kay Hearn, Associate Justice, South Carolina Supreme Court, in her official capacity, while acting under the color of law within the District and State of South Carolina to deprive and deny a U.S. citizen, Patrick Lee Booker, of his right and privilege to due process and to equal protection of the law, when they, acting without jurisdiction for lack of due process, did band and conspire together to hinder, prevent, or obstruct United States citizen Patrick Lee Booker in the free exercise and enjoyment of his right and privilege to due process and equal protection, secured to him by the Constitution and laws of the United States and obligated to the state of South Carolina, when they thus sua sponte entered an order restricting the exercise of Patrick Lee Booker's civil rights without affording him any due process or equal protection of the law. In the footnote, it says rather than afford U.S. citizen Patrick Lee Booker notice, an opportunity to be heard, in accordance with due process and equal protection, the state of South Carolina, through her so-called justice members, decided as a group of 5 judges to disregard its own legal precedent in re Maxton, in order to deny and deprive U.S. citizen Patrick Lee Booker of his fundamental civil rights to due process and equal protection of law, rather than comply with South Carolina Supreme Court's legal precedent set forth in re Maxton, and thereby afford U.S. citizen Patrick Lee Booker due process of law. Jean H. Toal conspired to and did restrict the free exercise and enjoyment of his rights without giving him any notice or opportunity to be heard prior to restricting his rights. The act was against the peace and dignity of the United States, including being the peace and dignity of this state, and South Carolina Attorney General Alan C. Wilson is duty-bound to prosecute the same, just as United States General Merrick Garland is duty-bound to prosecute the same. In South Carolina, it is unlawful for 2 or more persons to band or conspire together to prevent, hinder, or obstruct a U.S. citizen in the free exercise and enjoyment of rights, privileges, and immunities secured to him or her by the Constitution and laws of either United States or South Carolina. It's supposed to be Carolina, but it's Carolyn. Even more importantly, a person convicted in this state of conspiring against the civil rights of a U.S. citizen is a felon in the sight of God and law and is ineligible to hold and is disabled from holding any office of public trust in this state. Okay? Because Jean H. Toal conspired by and between Costa Placones, Donald Beatty, John Kittredge, and Kay Hearn to restrict the civil rights of a U.S. citizen without affording that U.S. citizen any due process and equal protection of law, she is guilty of a felony and upon conviction would be disabled from holding her current office of public trust, as is true for Costa Placones, Donald Beatty, John Kittredge, and Kay Hearn. This matter is currently pending federal grand jury investigation at the Matthew J. Perry Building, Room 203, U.S. Federal Courthouse in Columbia, South Carolina. Because the South Carolina legislature have deemed persons to be disabled from holding public office who have been convicted of conspiring to deprive a citizen of his or her civil rights, it is equally serious that Judge Jean Toal be disqualified from hearing and determining any further matters pending resolution of the federal criminal investigation of Jean Toal. But she hasn't been convicted. I've got to do a lot of research. He also included an affidavit where he makes these allegations again. Oh boy. Yeah, I've got to do some research. But I thought I'd let you guys know that this case never fails to surprise with all of the different twists and turns and branches and vines and webs that come out of it. This is Cassidy O'Connell saying stay well and stay tuned.